Global pollution was continuously increasing, and governments across the country were taking several measures to control it. To tackle this rising threat, the University of Chicago launched a revolutionary scientific project aimed at extracting clean hydrogen energy from water. As the project began, a scientist named Eddie arrived at the lab with his prepared system. As soon as he entered, Dr. Paul approached him for a routine update. The team informed him that they had achieved stable fusion for 4.6 milliseconds. They prepared a demonstration and invited Dr. Paul to observe. Everyone held their breath and crossed their fingers as the laser was fired. But once again, the experiment failed. The team felt discouraged, but Dr. Alastair reminded them that every failure teaches something new. He encouraged them to refine their data and try again. Motivated, the team got back to work. That night, Eddie couldn't sleep. He continued working in his small home lab, and after a few hours, he was astonished to discover a specific sound frequency that completely stabilized the experiment. He tested it multiple times, confirmed results, and immediately called his team, telling them that his preparation might finally be complete. The next day, the entire team gathered again in the lab. Following the professor's instructions, they set up the experiment using Eddie's discovery. This time, within minutes, they succeeded. They generated more energy than they input. Everyone burst into celebration. Dr. Paul stood in stunned silence, absorbing the historic moment, while the rest of the team celebrated with excitement. A few hours later, the celebration ended, and most people went home. As Eddie went to get his motorcycle, he noticed Dr. Lily struggling to start her car. Realizing that the battery was dead and that it was already late at night, Eddie decided to take her home by bus. Soon, the two left together, talking as they made their way home. Meanwhile, without anyone noticing, a mysterious van pulled up outside the lab. Several unknown, intimidating-looking individuals stepped out. Inside the lab, Dr. Alastair and Dr. Lou were still working. Suddenly, Dr. Lou heard strange noises and went out to investigate. Alastair called out, asking where he was going, but Lou didn't respond and followed the sound toward a machine. On the other side, Eddie dropped Dr. Lily off at her home and escorted her to her room, where she quickly fell asleep. Before leaving, Eddie noticed several certificates on her wall, showcasing her achievements. Later, Eddie returned to the lab to pick up his motorcycle. But when he arrived, he saw the same mysterious van leaving the area. Yet he didn't pay much attention and continued walking toward the lab. A short while later, as he reached his bike outside the lab, Eddie was startled by the loud sound of an alarm coming from inside. He immediately rushed into the lab to see what happened. Once inside, he called out loudly for his colleagues, but there was no response. Panicking, he searched around, and suddenly his eyes fell on Dr. Alastair, lying motionless on the floor. The sight left Eddie completely shaken. Dr. Lou was nowhere to be found. What he was seeing was too much for him to comprehend. He refused to accept that his mentor was gone. Broken and overwhelmed, Eddie then turned his attention to the alarm system and was shocked to discover that the system, which had been successful just hours earlier, had now become dangerously unstable. He neither knew how to shut it down nor how to stabilize it. Eddie realized that something was terribly wrong. An explosion was imminent. Thinking quickly, he ran outside, grabbed his motorcycle, and sped away as fast as he could. He pushed the bike to its limit. At that very moment, the people in the van activated a detonator, triggering a massive explosion that destroyed the entire lab and devastated up to 8 surrounding city blocks. The blast was so powerful that even from a distance, Eddie was thrown off and fell into a ditch. Fortunately, he survived the incident. After the explosion, Eddie somehow manages to get back on his feet and, in shock and disbelief, keeps staring at the scene in front of him. What had begun as a night of hope and celebration for humanity turns into a horrific disaster. After a while, pulling himself together, Eddie starts to leave. He turns back toward the lab, where he sees his destroyed workplace. At the same time, Dr. Paul is at home working on the project when he receives Eddie's call. That's when Paul learns that their lab has been completely destroyed. Hearing this, Dr. Paul goes into deep shock and spends hours trying to process it. He quietly looks out at his lab, as if mourning a dream that could have come true. The next morning, the media gathers at the explosion site, trying to understand what really happened. Alastair didn't return home last night, and Lou is also missing. Soon, the FBI arrives at the scene and begins the investigation. The FBI orders that every person who worked there must have their phones tapped, search warrants obtained, and be interrogated. The broken and grieving team stands to one side while FBI agents collect every piece of evidence. Later, the team is taken to FBI headquarters for questioning, where they are asked what was happening in the lab. Dr. Paul explains that they were working on something to stop the growing pollution and that they had achieved success. Then the FBI begins questioning people one by one. When all of you left the lab, who was still there at that time? Paul explains that Eddie and Sinclair left late and the other two people stayed in the lab. Eddie is asked, "What is your relationship with Miss Sinclair? Because since last night, Sinclair and Lou have been missing." Eddie replies, "We work together." In this way, the questioning continues for a long time, but no clue is found. After this, Lily, Paul, and Eddie go to Alistair's house, but the media surrounds them and starts accusing them, saying that these people don't care about anyone's life. After some time, Lily starts packing her belongings. Eddie tries to stop her. Just then, they receive an unexpected fax. She reads it and is shocked. This is from Dr. Luchin. He wants me to bring the remaining information. After thinking for a while and examining it carefully, Lily realizes something important. I'm being framed. But Eddie doesn't say anything at that moment. He just tells her to take care of herself and leaves. On the other side, Leon and Agent Doyle meet Paul in his office and accuse Eddie, saying, "We just got Eddie Kozlovic's file. It seems he had to leave college due to disciplinary issues." Paul says he resigned, but the agent is not ready to believe that. He suspects all three of them. Meanwhile, Eddie is going to meet Paul with Lily, but before reaching Paul's house, he sees that FBI agents are already there, so they immediately leave. Lily asks Eddie what's going on, but Eddie just tells her to get out of there. On the other side, Agent Doyle and his team, not finding Eddie, search his apartment and turn everything upside down. Then they find a device and realize that this is a transmitter, which sends a large amount of data through satellites. At the same time, the team sees a photo of Eddie with his friend, and the suspicion grows even stronger, and the search becomes more intense. Things get even worse for Eddie. When FBI agents search his apartment, they find a large amount of cash there. This deepens their suspicion that Eddie knows much more than he is telling. Meanwhile, with no place to hide Lily and Eddie reach Paul's apartment building, and at the same time, Paul also arrives there. Eddie questions Paul, asking what is going on outside and what he told the FBI. Paul, surprised, asks Eddie in return where the money he had hidden at home came from. Now even Paul begins to suspect Eddie, since Eddie was the only one there in the lab that night with those two. Then Paul says to Eddie, "Tell me the truth about the money, Eddie, the $250,000 that the FBI found in your loft." Eddie replies, "I don't know how that money ended up in my place." Paul, shocked, asks, "What do you mean you don't know?" Eddie says, "We didn't do anything to Shannon, and I am not responsible for any of this." Paul explains to him that if both of them are not guilty, then they should turn themselves over to the police, and the matter will resolve itself. Eddie is shocked that Paul could think this way about him, but he clearly refuses and says that he is innocent and that he will not surrender Lily to the police either. After meeting Paul, Lily and Eddie go to a restaurant to get some relief. There, Eddie tells Lily, "Maggie lives here." Lily asks, "Are you sure we can trust her?" Eddie replies, "We used to live and work together." Just then, news appears on TV. The reporter says, Lily Sinclair and Edward Kozlovic are being held responsible and are missing." Seeing this, Lily gets nervous and tells Eddie, "Go outside, take a taxi, and buy 2 tickets for Williams Bay." After this, Lily goes out alone and takes a taxi toward Union Station. At the same time, Eddie also comes out, but FBI agents recognize him and start chasing him. Lily watches all this from a distance but cannot do anything and hopes that Eddie will somehow reach the station. Meanwhile, Eddie is running to save his life, and behind him the FBI, police, and helicopters are chasing him. Eddie doesn't understand what to do. He just has to reach Lily somehow. While running, he reaches a bridge. From there is no way to escape. Eddie understands that if he wants to get out, he has to cross the bridge, so he tries to climb it. A police officer says to his partner, "If we raise the bridge, he'll fall." But Eddie gathers courage and starts climbing the bridge. All the police focus on him. One officer even tries to follow Eddie, but slips and falls down from the bridge. Within moments, the whole police force gathers there. Eddie thinks that he will jump into the river and escape from there, but there are police boats already in the water. So Eddie tries to come down from the other side of the bridge. At the same time, the police order to lower the bridge to stop him. When the bridge comes back to its normal position, the police climb onto it to find Eddie, but by then Eddie has already reached the other side. Before the police can catch him, he hides under a truck to avoid their sight. All the police officers start searching every corner one by one, but Eddie is nowhere to be seen. Meanwhile, Eddie manages to get into the truck without being noticed and escapes from there. After a lot of difficulty, Eddie finally reaches the station where Lily sees him, feels relieved, and hugs him. After this, both of them take a train for a long journey toward the observatory. Later, after facing many difficulties, they somehow reach Maggie's house by car. When they enter the house, they meet Maggie. While welcoming them jokingly, she says, "So you're the other terrorist, Lily." Eddie says, "We are in big trouble." Maggie replies, "Yes, I heard about both of you in the media." After a few days, Dr. Paul appears before a Senate committee. Accepting his mistake, he says, "Sometimes we have to pay a price to maintain our lead in the future." A committee member says, "You have spoken like a true patriot. Thank you." But Paul is also asked about the money and his colleagues. Paul replies, "I don't know, but it is true that both of them are innocent." The committee members say that he secretly developed this device without informing the government and ask what its purpose was. Paul says that the device was only meant to reduce increasing pollution, but the committee members do not believe him. On the other side, after watching the news on TV, Maggie, Dr. Lily, and Eddie start discussing. Maggie assures them that everything will be fine soon, but Eddie and Lily know that things will not be fixed so quickly. Meanwhile, Dr. Paul reaches a research center in Virginia called C Systems. He looks very worried. As he enters the center, FBI agents also reach there following him, but the guards do not allow the FBI to go inside. Inside, Dr. Paul says to Lyman Collier, "This is another mistake of yours, Lyman, because our colleagues are in trouble." Lyman questions him about where the two of them are, but Paul does not answer. Later, Dr. Paul receives a call. The caller tells him that the call is from someone at the Chicago office. Paul understands as soon as he picks up the phone. On the phone, Eddie says, "Shannon, this is Eddie. I'm in Williams Bay. We're coming to you." Dr. Paul immediately responds, "No, don't come here." But both of their phones are being tracked. Paul tries to explain that they can't keep running from the police like this and tells Eddie to meet him instead. Eddie says that he will definitely meet him, but just then he notices a police car heading toward him. As the sound of sirens gets closer, Eddie tells Maggie, "Thanks for everything." Then he runs toward the observatory and reaches Dr. Lily to take her so they can escape. Meanwhile, Maggie tries to mislead the police, but they spot her running and begin chasing her. Eddie reaches Lily, who's working on a computer. But Eddie says they don't have time and that they need to leave immediately. As he takes Lily and they step out of the room, a state trooper stops them. The trooper shouts, "Stop right there." They don't stop. Both of them run toward the roof, hoping to escape from there. But unfortunately, there is no way out on the roof. By then, the trooper has also caught up with them. They are surrounded and slowly begin to surrender. Just then, a helicopter arrives. But surprisingly, the man in the helicopter doesn't help the trooper. Instead, it's him. He deliberately leaves Eddie and Lily alive, and then he flies away. Within moments, many police vehicles arrive at the scene. Eddie picks up the dead trooper's gun, and both he and Lily escape from there. After a long run, they find a fire rescue boat. Eddie immediately tells Lily to get on the boat, and then he starts it. The police arrive before they can fully escape, but Eddie quickly takes control of the boat and speed away. However, the man in the helicopter is still chasing them. Soon, Eddie and Lily reach a hiding spot and quickly get off the boat. Eddie leaves the boat running to distract the helicopter. Then they run away from there. After running for a long time, they cross a lake and see a house ahead where no one seems to be around. They enter the house. It is completely empty, and they hide there for a while. Inside, Eddie notices that Dr. Lily is shivering from the cold, so he arranges warm water for her to bathe. On the other side, in Washington, Agent Leon and Agent Doyle question Dr. Leon says, "Your foundation receives funding from many places, but most of the money comes from an account in the Cayman Islands." Dr. Paul replies, "If that's true, then it could be a matter of national security." Agent Doyle immediately says, "National security does not involve killing people." While Paul tries to defend himself, both agents believe that he is still secretly in contact with Eddie and Lily. They tell Paul that no matter how hard he tries, his colleagues won't be able to escape the police. Disturbed by this, Paul goes to meet Lyman Collier. Paul says, now he's become a cop killer, at worst, they'll kill him. Lyman replies, "That boy is the only one who knows the correct frequency. We need to help Eddie somehow." At the empty house, Eddie cooks food for Lily and takes care of her. Then he says that they need to fix a car to get out of there. For that, he goes to the garage and, within a short time, manages to repair the car. After fixing it, he steps outside for a short walk, but suddenly he notices a flashlight inside the house. He immediately realizes that someone has broken in and quickly heads back inside. Inside, he overhears the attackers talking. One of them asks the other what exactly they are supposed to do inside. At that moment, Eddie and Dr. Lily work together and manage to overpower the attackers. After that, they leave immediately in the car. Lily checks their wallets but finds no identification, only a few clues pointing toward Leesburg, Virginia. After driving all night, they finally reach the location in the morning. Lily goes into a flower shop and says that she wants to send flowers and a note to a friend in Virginia. The note is actually a hidden message, which is sent to Paul. When the delivery is made, FBI agents stop the delivery man and question him, asking if they can see one of the items. Later, an agent says that he has brought something from the flower shop. The note reads, "Meet at 4 p.m. today at the Science Museum. In the afternoon, Doctor." Paul understands the message and arrives at the museum, where Eddie meets him. Paul tells him that his car is parked outside and asks him to follow so they can go somewhere quiet. Then he tells Eddie that the world is not as simple as they think and that it is time to move forward and complete their work. It seems as if, even after everything that has happened, he feels no regret. Eddie wants to ask him about the attackers from the previous night, but when Paul does not respond, Eddie deliberately walks away, knowing that Lyman's men are nearby. After that, an intense chase begins inside the museum. During this, Eddie and Dr. Lily get separated. Eddie believes that if he gets caught, Lily will be able to carry out their work, but things don't go as planned. Soon, Lyman's men capture Lily. Seeing this from a distance, Eddie tries to chase the car but fails, especially because the police have also arrived at the scene. He is only able to remember the car's number. A few hours later, Lily regains consciousness and finds herself inside the C Systems facility. There, a man tells her that they want her and Chen to continue their work with Barkley. Lily, shocked, asks if he is joking, but the man replies that he is completely serious. Meanwhile, at the FBI office, Agent Leon watches a video and questions whether Eddie looks like someone who would kill his mentor and blow up the lab, suggesting that it does not seem possible. At the same time, Eddie tracks the car using its number and reaches C Systems. He disguises himself as an employee and enters the facility. He goes inside with other workers using the elevator. Inside, he notices a large amount of debris in the lab. Quietly, he moves toward a section where he uses a pipe to reach another area, eventually making his way toward the lab where Lily and Dr. Lou were forced to conduct the experiment again. The experiment began, but within a few minutes, the system once again started becoming unstable. Eventually, the system failed. Dr. Lily said, "This won't work without the correct frequency." Meanwhile, Eddie was watching Lily from below. Lily noticed him, but chose to remain silent. After the system failed, everyone's mood was ruined, and by nightfall, they all returned to their rooms. During this time, Eddie secretly entered the lab and began fixing the system using his knowledge. After several attempts, he successfully set the correct frequency, and the system started working properly again. The next morning, Dr. Paul was informed. "Sir, Lucas says he has solved the problem." Surprised, Dr. Paul said, "Lucas? How is that possible?" Hearing this, Paul immediately rushed to the lab. "Dr. Paul asked, "Did you record the regulator frequency? I need that data." Everyone became extremely happy. A little later, Dr. Paul told his secretary, Anita, "I'll meet you at the silo. Wait as long as you can." Anita replied, "Yes, sir." When Dr. Paul returned to his office, he found Eddie sitting there. Eddie was quietly sending an email to FBI agent Leon. Dr. Paul said, "Hello, Eddie. I knew it was you." Eddie replied that he had discovered everything, that Paul had been working with those people and had mistreated their teammates. Dr. Paul said, "What can I do, Eddie? It's my job. But don't worry, I'll fix everything soon." An argument broke out between them. Just then, Lyman entered with his men and said, "That's enough, start the system. You have no choice." Eddie cleverly responded, "I've already sent an email to the FBI, and I'm ready to surrender." At the same time, Eddie shut down the system remotely. Furious, Lyman shouted, "What did you do?" Eddie replied, "I told the truth." Lyman yelled, "Shut it down." Eddie responded scientifically, "This is a self-running system. It can't be shut down." Meanwhile, at the FBI office, agents received Eddie's message and were shocked as to why he had sent it that day. Back in Lyman's lab, chaos erupted. One staff member shouted, "Pressure has reached 500 psi. Another said, "We've lost control of the system." Enraged, Lyman pulled out his gun, then took Lily hostage. Lucas tried to shut down the system, despite everyone warning him not to. Eddie shouted, but as soon as the system was shut down, things got even worse. Paul realized it could not be restarted. Lyman screamed to turn it back on, but Eddie replied that he couldn't. Paul agreed that nothing could be done anymore. Alarms began blaring, and people started running. Amid the chaos, Eddie and Dr. Lily reunited. As Lyman fled, he said, "You two stay here, Doctor." Paul apologized to Eddie and Lily before leaving. Eddie and Lily tried to escape, but guards locked them inside. Now trapped, they began searching for another way out. Meanwhile, FBI agents Leon and Doyle arrived by helicopter. Inside, Eddie used his intelligence to create an escape route, and both of them ran downward. On the other side, Dr. Paul and Lyman were in an elevator. Lyman asked, "Paul, do you have the disc?" Paul replied, "Yes, I do." Suddenly, Dr. Paul broke free from Lyman, realizing he had become a threat. Paul then unlocked the system, opening the doors and giving Eddie and Lily a chance to escape. Eddie led Lily forward. Inside the lab, chaos continued as everyone tried to flee. While escaping, Lyman's men attacked them, but Eddie defeated them and quickly got into the elevator. With the help of some staff, they attempted to get out. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocked the entire facility. Everyone held their breath, but somehow Eddie and Dr. Lily managed to escape alive. The staff cheered with relief. FBI agents approached them. An agent said, "We need answers to some questions. It'll take about 6 weeks." Eddie agreed, and they all left in the helicopter. Meanwhile, Dr. Paul quietly left the scene in a car with Anita, as if nothing had happened. In the end, the entire C-Systems complex was destroyed, as if it had never existed. And with that, the movie came to an end.